School lessons often highlight Christopher Columbus as the inaugural non-native to land on American shores, yet a startling discovery challenges this widely accepted notion. An Egyptian map, over 5,000 years old and remarkably outlining America, narrates an alternate historical account, potentially prompting a rewrite of history books. This video delves into the origins of this ancient map and queries how its creators managed to depict America with such precision. Join us as we unveil the artifact that suggests the pyramids predate our current understanding and explore the 5,000-year-old depiction of America unearthed in Egypt. Chapter 1. Unveiling the Mystery About Map of America. You have probably never heard of the Nagata culture and the mysterious Nubia Egg. However, these two could change everything you have been taught about history. Let's start with the Nagata culture. This was a culture that thrived in 400 to 300 BCE in Egypt, even before the emergence of the pharaohs. This made the culture a cradle of civilization for ancient Egypt. This time in history brought about the emergence of early settlement patterns and achievements in crafts. It was also the time that trade networks started to get established, setting the foundational components that evolved culturally and politically into ancient Egypt. According to scholars, one of the most fascinating aspects of the Nagata way of life was the rich artifact it yielded. In fact, these artifacts have been very crucial to our understanding of the dynamics of Egyptian society, religion, and artistic works. And then the Nubia Egg. This was no ordinary egg. Apart from being spectacular for the intricate craftsmanship, this singular egg has been at the very center of a heated debate on the origin and timeline of ancient Egyptian civilization, and also the extent of the ancient Egyptians' knowledge of the Americas. British archaeologist Malab Cecil unearthed it in 1907. It now resides in the Museum of Nubia in South Egypt. The Nubia egg dates back to about 7,000 years ago, and it is nothing short of a miracle that it has survived. It was unearthed from a burial site that has been associated with the period the Central Nile Valley was teeming with early settlers, or the very pioneers of civilization. The egg was originally an ostrich eggshell coated in intricate designs. The patterns on the egg are abstract and are what makes the egg so controversial. The egg has a depiction of 3 triangles on opposite sides. These triangles have horizontal lines stretching across them. Beside these triangles is a thin snake, and on the other side of the triangles is a big globule etching. This is where it gets interesting. Many scholars have claimed the triangles represent pyramids, and being 3 in number, they resemble the 3 major pyramids located on the Giza Plateau. These are the Pyramid of Menkaure, the Pyramid of Khafre, and the Great Pyramid of Khufu. The snake is said to represent the Nile River. With the Nubia egg being found in Lower Egypt, there is little wonder that some scholars are asking questions. Recall that the egg has been dated to be about 7,000 years. Well, according to modern belief, the pyramids are only 4,600 years old. There is a discrepancy of more than 2,000 years between this egg and the pyramids. So the question is, how did the egg come to depict pyramids built thousands of years after it was designed? Or could it be that the pyramids are simply thousands of years older than we have been told? Some theorists have said the triangles are nothing but rudimentary depictions of mountains. However, it is clear from the symmetry of the art and the horizontal lines that the artist was not trying to represent naturally occurring mountain ranges. Mountains do not naturally have clean lines. Moreover, one must remember the science behind dating the pyramids. Carbon-14 dating is not the best for dating stone constructions. They are not even the most reliable when dating hieroglyphics. In fact, hieroglyphics could have been added to the pyramids at a later date, perhaps when the pyramids were repurposed by the Egyptians. There have long been criticisms of the conventional methods used to date the Giza pyramids. There are even allegations of evidence forgery. One of these is the controversy surrounding Colonel Howard Weiss. It was this colonel who claimed to have discovered painted marks inside the relieving chambers of the Great Pyramid. The name of Khufu was found in these painted marks, and he was then credited with constructing the pyramid. This piece of info was then used to date the pyramid. The problem, however, was that some researchers have speculated that it was possible Weiss made up these marks, perhaps to make a name for himself in the field and secure his place in history. This allegation has caused many people to scrutinize the colonel's character and what it could mean if he really forged the evidence. On the other hand, are those that have provided proof that the pyramids are about 8,000 years old. They also talk about the way the pyramids align with some astronomical phenomena that point to an older period in history. They also look for other evidence that suggests that people of ancient civilizations possessed the tools and the skills required to build such massive structures. They point to geological evidence like weathering patterns. This line of thought has been explored by Dr. Robert Schoch, a geologist and professor at Boston University. His work on the Sphinx, which has guarded the Giza pyramids for thousands of years, centered on weathering patterns. Schock's curiosity about the age of the Sphinx was sparked when he observed distinct erosion patterns that did not seem to align with what one would have expected from wind and sand. Wind and sand are important here because they are the main erosion agents in Egypt's climate. The patterns instead tell a story of the Sphinx being subjected to extended periods of heavy rainfalls. This would have caused deep weathering on the bedrock made of limestone. Other sources confirm that such climatic conditions have not been experienced in the Giza Plateau for thousands of years. This would mean the Sphinx probably was built before the Sahara Desert. Again, the erosion pattern Schock identified on the Sphinx's enclosure was vertical and undulating, which looked to have been caused by running water. Other geologists, apart from Schock, have confirmed that these features are proof of erosion caused by rainfall. This would have been prevalent in the Neolithic subpluvial period of 10,000 to 5,000 BC. During this period, the Sahara Desert used to have a wet climate that supported rivers and lakes. What this means is that the Sphinx and the Giza pyramids could have predated the dynastic Egypt period. There are other writings that suggest older dates for the construction of the pyramids. One such is the work of al-Masudi. Al-Masudi was an ancient Egyptian historian who contended that Pharaoh Khufu did not build the Great Pyramid. This historian ascribed it to a king named Surid. The twist is that al-Masudi linked Surid to the biblical Enoch. Al-Masudi claimed Surid was a ruler full of wisdom, which enabled him to foresee that a great flood would come. He then ordered the construction of the pyramid as a repository of knowledge and as a warehouse of the essence of civilization. This story is not strange to the pre-Islamic North African tradition that worshipped stars and other objects in space. They often embedded these celestial bodies into their religious and funerary practices. What this means is that the current method of dating the pyramids could be a little more than guesswork. There have been questions as to why the pyramids appear twice on the Nubia Egg. What if the representation was a seasonal or global convention that represents the pyramids and the Nile River in the dry season and the wet season? This thinking is supported by the fact that the Niles on the eggs are not of the same width, which would mean the changing volumes of the river based on the season or time of the year. This could mean that while the Nubia Egg depicts pyramids and a river, the inspiration for the design was actually to depict the changing times of the year. There is something else of note near the top of the egg, and fans of the lost city of Atlantis would love this one. The egg has several concentric circles around a small opening at the top. These, according to some scholars, remind one of Plato's Critias of around 360 BC. In the literary work, Plato discussed Atlantis with a brief description that says, making alternate zones of sea and land larger and smaller, encircling one another. There were 2 of land and 3 of water, which he turned as with a lathe, each having its circumference equidistant every way from the center. Could this have meant the Nubia Egg was depicting the civilizations of both Egypt and Atlantis? If it turns out there is any geographical correlation, then Atlantis may not be so distant from Egypt. Perhaps this decorated egg from thousands of years ago can help in the search for the ancient lost city of Atlantis. If you think that is shocking, wait till we tell you about paintings that could prove the ancient Egyptians knew about the Americas long before the Europeans started sailing the open seas. We are talking about the paintings discovered in a place that included the maps of both the Old World and the American continent. The place of the discovery was a site in Hanas, referred to as Nin in ancient times. To understand the background of the existence of the map, Hanas was a vibrant city that existed in pre-dynasty Egypt. It was the religious and political capital of Upper Egypt and has yielded many artifacts. However, none of these artifacts are as significant as the map-bearing painting. Trained eyes immediately saw that these paintings were much more than decorative pieces because they include recognizable continent outlines. The degree of accuracy of other geographic features is also very high. Scanning the paintings for a few minutes will show you the American continent. How could the artists have known to include the American continent? It simply has to be that the painters and the civilization they belonged to knew about the existence of the continent, or, at most, they must have had contact with the native people of America. What this implies is that there were transoceanic voyages even at that time, millennia before explorers like Christopher Columbus. Did the Egyptians send explorers to cross the Atlantic long before the time we have been told that it happened? Did they have substantial dealings with the civilizations in America? Apart from the map of America in these paintings, there are maps of Europe that also amazed observers with their level of accuracy. It shows the outlines of Europe, Asia, and Africa. It even shows well-known features like the Nile River, the Mediterranean Sea, and the mountain ranges of Europe and Asia. The map makers must have either been explorers themselves or had access to a database of geographical knowledge, which could have been accumulated over the years through international trade or explorations. The map's artistic style and techniques on the painting also amazed researchers, speaking to the quality of their output. They used natural pigments and precise line work, but perhaps their greatest achievement is making us rethink what we thought we knew about the first non-native people to set foot on American soil. Now let's talk about some more interesting recent archaeological discoveries. Number 10. The Knife-Armed Man. In 2018, archaeologists announced the discovery of a 1,500-year-old skeleton of a man who lived a tragic life 1,500 years ago. This man received a single blow, and his right hand was severed. Most people would have succumbed to blood loss or infection, but this man survived, and in place of his lost hand, he decided to wield a knife, which earned him the nickname Knife-Armed Man. When archaeologists discovered the skeleton, the man's severed bones were already healed, but a long knife was buckled to his arm with leather straps. Over 200 fellow Italian skeletons and one headless horse were also discovered in the same place where the knife-armed man was interred. Rather than be horrified, archaeologists felt touched upon learning the story of this limb man. It's hard to survive wounds during his time, and yet not only did the knife-armed man survive, he thrived despite losing one of his hands. That's saying a lot, especially because he lived during the pre-antibiotic era. Subsequent research revealed that the man was already in his late 40s, which is a personal triumph considering the condition he was given. It's truly astounding what science allows us to discover. Studies of the skeleton also revealed one small detail about the man that could have gone unnoticed otherwise. Dental analysis of the knife-armed man showed that one of the man's upper incisors was worn down significantly compared to the surrounding teeth. This means that, rather than chewing, it was used for something else, like, say, tightening the straps on his prosthetic. It seems that after losing his hand, he remained alone and independent. These small details make me wonder just how he lived, and how interesting or hard his life was after he lost his arm. Number 9. Shackled skeletons. In 2016, archaeologists were stumped by the discovery of an ancient Greek mass grave in the port city of Phaleron, located a mere 4 miles from Athens, Greece. If you're thinking the grave is horrifying because of the number of skeletons discovered in the pit, you'd be wrong. During construction for a new library, archaeologists discovered the grave with remains that date back to the tumultuous period between 650 and 625 BC. In total, there were about 80 skeletons discovered, and among them, 36 were found with their wrists bound in iron shackles. Yes, you heard that right, shackles. It seems like to their death, they remain bound and stripped away of their freedom. But what's the reason behind this? Well, the easiest answer would probably be because these were prisoners. However, scholars believed that the skeletons were followers of Cylon, the 7th century BC Athenian nobleman and Olympic champion. Although renowned today, he has one of the most tragic stories among historical figures. After his Olympic victory, he sought to seize Athens with the support of his father-in-law's soldiers. Unfortunately for him, luck wasn't on his side. His efforts failed, leading to a dramatic siege in the Acropolis. The besieged rebels, promised safe passage by the city archon megacles, were betrayed, and their lives were ended as they left their sanctuary. This eventually led to the mass grave that archaeologists discovered centuries after their tragic death. Number 8. Coffin birth. When life ceases to exist, when a person breathes their last breath, their entire body shuts down. For this reason, when a pregnant woman passes on, the fetus will also suffer the same fate as her mother and will never be born. But did you know that throughout history, there have been several cases of coffin birth? Coffin birth, or postmortem fetal extrusion, is a rare and highly debated phenomenon. But how does a lifeless mother give birth? Well, it's believed that this occurs when gases build up in the abdomen of a deceased pregnant woman, leading to the expulsion of a fetus. This process is a direct result of the body's decomposition, which generates gases that create pressure, forcing the uterus and potentially the fetus out of the body. That's why, technically speaking, it's nothing like childbirth. The oldest case of coffin birth was recorded as far back as 1551. Most of them are eyewitness accounts, but among the tangible evidence we've uncovered is this mysterious skeleton unearthed in the medieval town of Imola, Italy. This skeleton is believed to belong to a 1,300-year-old woman. However, she wasn't alone in her coffin. Between her legs was a small fetus. What's weird is that she has a small hole in her skull. Now, evidence of coffin birth is a rare sight in archaeology, but what perplexes experts is the presence of the hole in the woman's skull. The hole was likely created due to preeclampsia, which happens due to high blood pressure. Despite attempting to relieve her symptoms, she perished along with her unborn child. Number 7. In the tree roots. In 2015, a powerful storm brought down a 25-year-old tree in the quiet town of Collooney in County Sligo, Ireland. It sounds like a normal occurrence after a storm, but what people found in the tree's roots horrified many. Entangled within the uprooted mass was the skeleton of a young man, believed to be between 17 and 20 years old at the time of his death, dating back to the medieval period between AD 1030 and 1200. The condition and position of the bones suggest the young man met a rather unpleasant end, with injuries likely caused by a knife found on his ribs and hand. The burial was traditional for the period, but over centuries, the tree's growth intertwined with the remains. I can only imagine how people reacted when they first stumbled upon the man's skeleton. I'd be horrified too. The discovery sparked widespread interest among archaeologists and historians, eager to learn more about the circumstances of the young man's death and burial. Further analysis indicated that he might have been the victim of a violent conflict, possibly related to the tribal warfare common in Ireland during the medieval period. This incident highlights how natural events can unexpectedly unveil glimpses into the past, offering new information about historical societies and their practices. It also serves as a stark reminder of the transient nature of life and the enduring mystery of death, connecting the present with the distant past in a most unexpected way. Number 6. Bizarre way of expressing love. For centuries ago, beneath the basement of the convent of the Jacobins in Rennes, France, archaeologists made a bittersweet discovery. They found 5 embalmed human hearts buried in heart-shaped lead urns. These hearts, dating back to the late 16th or early 17th centuries, were discovered during excavations. Preserving these organs allowed modern scientists to use medical imaging techniques to peer inside, revealing details about the chambers, valves, arteries, and even signs of diseases like atherosclerosis in some of the hearts. One of the hearts was identified as belonging to Toussaint Parien, Knight of Brefilhac, through an inscription on its urn. You see, it was common at the time to be buried with the heart of a spouse. Now, it might seem morbid, but it's also a little romantic. Nonetheless, scientists discovered signs of present-day heart conditions such as plaque and arteriosclerosis in the hearts inside the urns. Only one heart showed no signs of disease. Now, this is probably among the weirdest ways we deal with grief and death. This unique find not only sheds light on the burial practices and health of the aristocracy of the time, but also offers a rare opportunity for modern medicine to study historical diseases. The practice of heart burial, separating the heart from the body, underscores the importance of the heart as a symbol of love, valor, and the essence of the deceased. These preserved hearts serve as a tangible connection to the past, allowing us to feel a sense of intimacy with those long gone. The meticulous care taken in preserving these organs highlights the reverence for the dead and the desire to keep them remembered, demonstrating the universal and timeless nature of human grief and remembrance. Number 5. Tower of Skulls. The Aztecs are one of the greatest civilizations in history. However, they're also among the most ferocious. Did you know the Aztecs created a Tower of Skulls in one of their territories? Yes, you heard that right. This morbid creation, known as the Tower of Skulls, was part of the Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan. Initially believed only to be a decent-sized creation, recent excavations revealed otherwise. It turned out that the tower was much larger than we thought, with a diameter of 16.4 feet and a total number of skulls totaling over 600, including those of women and children alongside warriors. Now, what did these people do to be part of this horrifying tower? Well, just like the Inca, the Aztecs also engaged in human sacrificial rituals, and those unfortunate souls who were chosen probably became part of the tower. In fact, 600 is even a relatively small number. After all, the Aztecs kept 20,000 prisoners of war during the dedication of the new temple in 1487, and there might be more bizarre skull and bone arrangements in the temple. Again, while we view this tower as something grisly, people at the time believed that the construction of this tower was absolutely necessary. This tower kept the gods alive, preventing the destruction of the universe. Number 4. Ghost in a tablet. It seems that humanity's fear of the paranormal can be traced back as far as 3,500 years ago. Within the collections of the British Museum is a small tablet that contains a rather eerie engraving. On the tablet was a figure of a woman, but when the tablet was put beneath specific lighting, something revealed itself, a ghost. This seemingly ordinary tablet shows a ghost being led to the afterlife by a woman. But what does this mean? Well, experts discovered that this tablet is part of an exorcism ritual. Likely, this engraving dates back thousands of years to Babylon and the broader region of Mesopotamia. Once complete, the ritual instructs the reader to make figures of a man and a woman. The man should have travel provisions, while the woman should have furniture. At sunrise, the two figures should be buried, and a spell should be recited before them. And that's it. Apparently, that's how you exorcise ghosts in Babylon. The last inscription in the tablet, however, is quite creepy. It consists of only 5 words: "Do not look behind you." This ominous instruction encapsulates the ancient fear of the unseen and the unknown, a sentiment that pervades human history. The discovery of this tablet not only provides insight into ancient Babylonian culture, but also into the timeless human endeavor to understand and control the supernatural. Such artifacts serve as a reminder that the fascination with ghosts and the afterlife is not just a modern phenomenon but one deeply rooted in the annals of human civilization. This ancient tablet, therefore, represents one of the earliest recorded attempts to deal with the paranormal, highlighting the enduring nature of our quest to confront the mysteries of the beyond. Number 3. Jigsaw skeletons. In 2011, archaeologists discovered a bizarre mummy in Scotland's Outer Hebrides. It's not unusual to unearth mummies. Egypt has enough for us to see. However, this one doesn't have a single owner. Just as the name Jigsaw skeleton implies, the remains didn't belong to a single person, but rather, a single well-preserved body was made up of different body parts from various people. Horrifying, don't you think? The team, led by experts from the University of Sheffield and later analyzed by the University of Manchester, discovered that one of the female mummies was actually a composite made up of 3 different people, with some parts, like the skull, being male. This discovery was groundbreaking because it represented the first evidence in Britain of deliberate mummification, challenging previous notions about ancient British practices. But why go through such an elaborate and morbid process? Professor Mike Parker Pearson, an expert in Bronze Age and burial rituals, suggests a fascinating theory. He believes that these composite mummies were not just preserved and pieced together for the sake of it, but played a crucial role in the society of the time. They might have represented kinship, merging lineages by combining body parts from different members of the same families, creating a symbolic ancestor. This could have been a powerful way to assert rights over land, resources, and power. These mummies weren't hidden away but likely played an active part in society, possibly even consulted for spiritual advice to help the community make decisions. Imagine the impact of such figures, physical embodiments of ancestral power and wisdom, on the living community. Further tests revealed another layer of complexity to this practice. The mummification process involved placing the bodies in bogs for about a year, which would demineralize the bones, a crucial step in preserving these bodies over the centuries. Number 2. Missing for 75 years. Found frozen in the snow. Over 75 years ago, amidst World War II, a Swiss couple left their farm in the Alps. It was the last time their family saw 40-year-old Marcelin and 37-year-old Francine ever again. Their 6 children were left to fend for themselves until adulthood. Try as they might, they never found their parents' whereabouts again. They knew their parents went to milk their cows in the meadow near their home and never returned. Unfortunately for these children, the truth behind their parents' disappearance wouldn't be revealed until decades later. Workers found 2 bodies frozen during routine maintenance for a ski resort in the area, about 8,500 feet above sea level. These 2 bodies turned out to be none other than Marcelin and Francine. Just imagine the grief their children had to endure. It also must have been tough for the husband and wife who suffered such tragic deaths. The discovery offered a bittersweet closure to their family, answering a decades-long mystery of what had happened to the missing couple. It is believed that Marcelin and Francine had fallen into a crevasse, their remains preserved by the glacier until it receded. This tragic story highlights the dangers of the alpine environment, even for those familiar with its terrain. The couple's final resting place, now a poignant reminder of their fate, has since become a part of local lore, symbolizing the enduring memory of those lost to the mountains. Number 1. Unluckiest man in Pompei. Most people have already heard about the great city of Pompei. The city was turned upside down in a single night before Vesuvius' eruption. Pompei was a vibrant, bustling city. It was a center of culture and commerce, a place where the wealthy and the elite of Roman society built their villas and their mansions. After all, it was also popular for its access to thermal baths. Combined with Roman engineering, Pompei soon began to thrive as a place for grandeur. And if there's anything we know about Romans, it's the fact that they knew how to enjoy the finer things in life. Now, imagine that this thriving city, with an estimated population of 15,000, was tragically silenced overnight by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 CE. The volcanic ash and pumice that buried the city acted as a preserver, capturing the final moments of its inhabitants. However, did you know that it's not the bodies themselves we see today, but rather casts made from the voids left in the ash layers that encase them? Bodies, well, they decompose, and over the centuries, the actual remains of the people in Pompeii disappeared, but they left behind the volcanic material that covered their bodies. In the 18th century, when Pompeii was rediscovered, archaeologists found these voids. However, it wasn't until 1864 that Giuseppe Fiorelli, the director of excavations, ingeniously decided to fill these cavities with plaster to reveal the shapes of the once living residents of Pompeii. While I find these discoveries fascinating, perhaps you have more obscure archaeological discoveries to share. Feel free to do so in the comments down below. Also, check out our other cool stuff showing up on the screen right now, and I'll see you in the next video.